Back in the roster page, we need to get a reference to the hook we just created. Just inside the roster function, add a line to call it. Remember, useStudents is essentially a pass-through to React's useState function, but it wraps and hides that mock array. Our roster page doesn't care where those students come from, so we won't tell it. Now that we have some students, let's list them on the screen. Remove that paragraph tag and add an Ion page tag. Remember, all Ionic React pages need an Ion page tag as its root component. As always, as we enter these next few component tags on the page, you need to make sure they're being imported from Ionic React. Next, we'll create the page header, insert an Ion header tag, then an Ion toolbar tag inside of that, and an Ion title tag inside of that. Set the Ion title's text to roster. I hope that you find the Ion header is familiar, as we've seen it on the homepage and also during the guided tour. Immediately after the Ion header, we need an Ion content. Inside the Ion content, let's introduce a new component, the Ion list. An Ion list is another container component, designed to wrap multiple types of items in a visually consistent manner. Ion lists contain things called Ion items, which in turn wrap Ion labels, Ion buttons, Ion icons, form input fields, and so forth. We'll use all of those and more during this course. Ion lists can also be used to implement item sliding, which you've probably seen before. These are options that only appear when you swipe left or right on an item, revealing a less often used or potentially dangerous option, such as delete. Back in the code, immediately inside the Ion list, we can iterate over the students array using the array map function. We need to provide an arrow function to map that will describe what we want to do with each student in the array. So think of it this way. We're displaying a list of unknown length, but each item of the array will be displayed using the same template. Inside the map's arrow function, we'll return some markup. We'll start with the Ion item sliding component. Ion item sliding will provide us with a new item swipe or slide option. Inside of that will be an Ion item tag. This component will encapsulate the entire list item, which we implement with an Ion item component. Inside the Ion item, add an Ion icon and an Ion label as siblings. Set the icon slot attribute to start and the icon attribute to person outline. And again, don't forget to import your icons or they won't work. Inside the Ion label, bind some text to the student's last and first names separated by a comma. Next to them, let's create two more Ion icon tags, which we will conditionally render based on the student's status of absent or present. The first one is for present, and we'll set it to the eye icon. The second is to be displayed when the student is absent, so for that one, let's use the eye off outline, which is an outline of an eye with a line through it. The way we render the icons conditionally is to wrap the entire Ion icon tag in a JavaScript logical expression. Compare the student's status to the value of present or absent, followed by the logical AND operator, itself followed by the Ion icon. The short-circuiting rules of JavaScript will prevent the second half of the expression from being evaluated if the first half evaluates to false. Note that it is entirely possible for the student's status to be neither value, because the status field is optional. In that case, neither icon will be rendered, which is what we want. Save the file now and see how it looks. If all went well, all of our students are displayed as expected. Let's wrap up this lesson by finishing that sliding item. Immediately before the Ion item sliding closing tag, let's add an Ion item options tag with the side attribute set to end. This means that we want the option to appear at the end of the item, meaning when we slide it towards the beginning of the item, it'll appear. Inside of that tag, add a single Ion item option tag. Make sure you mind the singular plural here. The plural tag is the outer tag. Set this one's color to danger, which by default is a scary-looking orange-red color. We'll deal with the click handler later, so for now, simply set the tag's value to the word delete. Save the file and refresh the page. At this point, the only interactivity is the slider itself, so click and drag an item towards the beginning of the item. You should see the delete button. You can click it. It behaves visually as you'd expect, but it won't do anything yet. In the next lesson, we'll wire up some new commands to this page so that we can manage our roster of students.